hello, our podcast family. Hello, our podcast family. Welcome back to Pastor Mike with Pastor D and my co-host Mika G.
Hello.
So we are back again, y'all. Thank all of you who watched our last podcast, which was keeping your mental health on last month. It was a really, really good episode. You saw a lot of transparency from myself and Mika G. And it was really good. Got a lot of feedback. Y'all commented, shared, liked it. It was amazing. So we're asking y'all now to do it again. Like, share, subscribe on all of our platforms that we're broadcasting Pastor Mike with Pastor D. So today, it was so good on our last episode. We're going to run it back, right, Mika?
Yeah, we're going to run it back.
But today, we're going to throw another little element in it. If you notice, this time, you see Mika G and I sitting next to each other. That's because we have a special guest in the house. So we need y'all to welcome Miss Natasha Holly.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Mika G and I were on here last week, and we did the best we could talk about mental health because we have our mental health challenges, and we just shared that. But now we get you here,
Okay.
so you can help share from I don't know if the right word is clinical perspective.
Okay.
So before we get started, can you just tell the people who you are?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Natasha Holly again. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a certified clinical supervisor, as well as a licensed clinical addiction specialist. I actually hold the title of being the CEO of Integrated Family Services.
All right.
We actually provide outpatient therapy for children, psychiatric services for children, but the biggest thing we do in the community is provide mobile crisis management services.
So you help. Now, I heard you say children, but do you do anything with adults?
So our specific population for outpatient therapy and psychiatric services from the organization's perspective is children. Mm-hmm. Mobile crisis, though, however, we recognize that crisis can happen to anyone. So with that service being provided in the community, we're able to respond to children, adolescents, and adults within Pasquotank County, as well as 32 other counties within North Carolina.
Wow.
Yes.
So that's huge. So mobile crisis is anyone who are having help me with the right terminology. Is it mental health crisis? Is it mental health challenge? Is it?
So people.
What's the right term?
Let me explain it like this. When you think about mental health, that is essentially how a person is feeling, their emotions, their psychological state, their social well-being. So anything that has caused a person not to be themselves, we can consider that as being something that's a factor that's impacting their mental health. Mental health is essentially what we need to be able to cope with stress, what we need to be able to have healthy relationships, what we need to be able to thrive. We can't function the way we should without having good emotional or mental health. So when you think about a crisis, it is a situation where essentially something has happened that has caused a person to not be able to cope with whatever those stressors are.
Okay.
Got it. So that helps me and others out there to truly understand what we mean by mental health. And I did not hear you say anything in that definition or explanation that someone's crazy.
No. That's a word that I try to keep out of my vocabulary because, and I heard you all say that you talked about this last month, stigma is real. Mm-hmm. So if I was to ask anybody, including myself, have we had an off day? Have we had a day where we weren't ourselves, mm-hmm. where we were upset, irritable, mm-hmm. short-tempered? Everybody would say yes. Some people will raise two hands, both feet. We're human, yes, right? Absolutely. So as a result of that, We have to understand that when we're having those moments, it's not that we're crazy. It's just that we are having an off day, and we need to focus a little bit more on trying to get us back to a state of being well.
Yeah. Yeah, I have so whew, so because I have a few extra off days,
Okay.
does that make me any different than anybody else?
No, no. We have to understand that as people, we have different experiences. We grew up in different environments, so that means we have different coping skills. I may have some skills that you don't. I may have natural support that I can go to help me through. This person over here may not. So it's based upon what people have access to, those protective factors, if you will. And if those aren't there, sometimes we just need a little extra support to help us get back on the right track.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, let me ask you this, 'cause that's a great segue into accessibility.
Sure.
So, at what point did you recognize that there was a need? And then I want to go back to what motivated you to want to be like a part of the change agents and say,
That's
well,
good,
let
Nikki
me insert this here, like to even format it for a service for people in the community, like the beginning of the thought
That's
of
a
to
great
do
question.
this. Like,
Sure. So I won't take credit in starting it. I partnered in it.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is the vision was not my own. I bought into the vision. When you look at our communities, so many of us suffer in silence. We internalize things because of what we were conditioned to believe.
is normal.
It's
Yeah.
normal. A lot of households that we grew up in had the philosophy of keeping things that are going on in the house, and you don't go out to share your business to other people. So as
Yeah.
a result of that, over years, we've told ourselves that we need to keep whatever's going on with us in us. That's not real.
Absolutely.
That's not real because we have so many different things that we engage in throughout the day. We have so many responsibilities that we have to do our best in,
Yeah.
right? So in order to do that, we have to have some type of outlet to be able to say, I'm not okay today. And when I say that, for me not to be treated as this anomaly,
Yeah.
but okay, let's talk through it so you can be better. That's how I've bought into the change. We struggle so much as a community by thinking we have to deal with things alone. And in order for us to begin to thrive, in order for us to be empowered, in order for us to begin to make some differences in our community, we have to begin to change our mindset of how we need to live to be successful.
Absolutely. So, great segue to this. So, we landed. We were in Texas last week for a conference. It was different people on the panel.
Okay.
We ended up coming across a Dr. Brene Brown. I don't know if you've heard of her. So, basically, she's buying into what they're calling now the soft girl era. So, where we're having this enlightenment of what you're saying. So now, the curse word that was in the room, vulnerability, is being used more often. People are taking off the armor and wanting to really get to the root cause of the problem. So have you seen now that there are more people who are like, hey, I might want to see what you offer to assist me? Is it, I guess, more easier for people now to talk about it? Are you seeing a change in that, or is it still?
People are beginning to be more comfortable
Okay.
because of, I think, what we see around us, circumstances that people are experiencing, what we're seeing in the public world, with so many now famous people speaking up about their struggles and the realization of we're all human.
That's it.
However, I will not discredit the fact that we still have work to do.
Okay, absolutely.
And what I'm seeing is, as there are more events such as this podcast and people talking about it in the community and people becoming more comfortable and having more awareness about it, then they become open to understanding the benefits that can happen with beginning to receive service.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So, how important is it for you? Because now you're in these rooms as CEO to these different capabilities, these different facets. How important is it for you for to have meaningful representation for us in those settings?
Very much so. Within our organization, we intentionally try to seek out opportunities to increase education, to increase awareness. It could be partnering with schools to set up a booth for meetings, parent meetings, where we're able to give out information, not only in this community, but in all the communities we're in. Fairs, parades, things such as that, where we know that our people basically go, we're trying to get that information out. However, I would say that it is going to be a joint effort. It is something that has to go beyond just me or my organization, but more people in the community who are decision makers have the ability to connect, and it takes a village to be able to get people to be more comfortable to speak, to receive, and honestly to empower each other so we can be well.
So let me ask, so you just open up something that I really we've talked about on several occasions. So she asked you about our community, our people, but not just African Americans,
Sure.
but really minority community. We kind of shy away from therapy because it goes back to what I said in the beginning, because the image of stigma was that we're crazy if we go see somebody. How do you think that, because I heard you mention that it takes the village, it takes the community, it takes everybody. How do you think the community, because they may think, I don't have an expertise in this area, so how can I help in this area? The church, we want to teach faith, the Bible, which is cool, which is what we have to teach.
Right.
How do we pull in mental health, the therapy of mental health, calling somebody like you? How do we pull that into our communities? How do we encourage our people to pull that in?
It has to be intentional. It's not something that can just happen. People, leaders within the church community or communities itself have to better understand what it is. We can't preach, we can't draw people to, we can't link people to the service or to the helping them understand the importance if as leaders we don't understand. So it starts there.
That's good.
So on the foundational level, it may be that leaders come together and there's some educational sessions about what mental health is, talking about the stigma, there being an opportunity for them to reflect on their perspectives on mental health. Because we can stand in front of a congregation, we can stand in front of a podium as a leader and say one thing, but truly our beliefs, our values, and how we perceive it is going to really drive the action and the behaviors behind it. So it starts there. Once you get the leaders to buy in, then it's trying to figure out strategically, how can we begin to make a difference in the community? What pockets of people do we need to kind of bring together? What type of initiatives do we need to begin to create? What type of marketing campaigns do we need to begin to start? So it all, in my opinion, comes from awareness.
That's good. That's good. Now, does Integrated Family Services, did I say it right?
You did. Good job.
Integrated, and I didn't write it down, y'all. That was off the dome, y'all. So, yeah. So, Integrated Family Services, do you guys offer anything like for training? Like for those in the community who have no skill set of understanding mental health, just some. So right now, I think I mentioned to you before, we did a mental health first aid training, right? That we did some of our leaders in our church, and right now I'm in the process of doing something now with local clergy in the area that helped us understand, like what you just said, what mental health challenges are. So we're going to do another one on October the 21st.
Okay.
So if anybody's watching a podcast and you think your pastor or some clergy in your congregation could benefit from this, message us on the podcast. Let me know if you think they should come in, talk to them, let them know what's happening, and we can do just what she's saying. Get us aware of this happening. Now, does Integrated Family Services offer that, or looking in the future to offer anything like that?
So, as an organization, we truly believe that education and awareness is important. People can't do better unless they know better. So, we have to be an active part of that. Yes, I do trainings. There's several people within the organization that does trainings across our territory. At this point, honestly, a lot of different organizations and agencies. I'm actually en route to Statesville on tomorrow to do a training for an organization that's similar to Head Start, where they are seeking to gain more information and knowledge about mental health, wellness, how to cope with stress and burnout, because they recognize that if their employees aren't strong and well, then that's going to transcend into their performance. Absolutely. So the answer to your question is yes. We do a multitude of trainings to support different stakeholders to get a better understanding of the importance of emotional health.
That's major. Yeah. That's major, because we, like you said, if we don't know, we don't know.
That's all right.
All right. So you spoke about you also being addiction specialist.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So with addiction specialists, and then you're in the mental health realm too. So
yes.
These are like some of the giants of our generation. So what motivates you to be able to step out, to be in that leadership perspective, to take on these giants? What is the motivator behind it?
It started from my childhood. My mom was a social worker in the Department of Social Services in Bertie County for 20 plus years. My dad, long-term educator, pastor, community activist. So it's all I've seen. It's ingrained in me. Why me and the drive behind it? I would have to say, when you think about the difficulties that we experience, and when I say we, I just mean people in general, we want to do our best, but sometimes we don't know how to deal with the many obstacles and challenges that we have that hinder us from doing our best. So when I look at it in that way, I believe my gift is to be able to help people to understand that there is hope in spite of the challenges that they have experienced. And just because this obstacle is in front of you today does not mean it's the end. But sometimes we need additional support, motivation, a push to help us get to wherever it is that we're trying to go.
Yeah, that's good.
So you shared something earlier about when I talk about the word crazy being a stigma for mental health. What else are some stigmas that keep us away from seeking therapy or mental counseling? What are some more stigmas that we can hear that we say, okay, really, that's really not how it is? Okay.
It's a community piece, because a lot of times it's not what I think, but it is the thought of me being judged. Okay. So if somebody finds out that I'm going to this therapist, or I'm reaching out, or I'm calling this number, or I'm texting, this hotline to get some additional help, that I'm not okay, that I'm, I can be isolated. I can be ostracized.
Yeah.
I can be judged. How will people view me if they realize that I'm not okay? So I think sometimes we struggle more with the perception instead of our own internal thoughts, and that's the barrier that hinders us from being able to get the help we need. Another piece to that, I think, is knowing how to navigate the system.
Okay.
Being a professional in the system, I can say it is confusing. So if it's confusing to me, I can't imagine how confusing it is for someone who is trying to get in and not knowing where to go, who to call, who to ask for help. That in itself can cause someone to say, you know what, never mind. I just rather kind of deal with this on my own.
Right. Well, what is for someone
go
that
ahead.
needs that help? What is the first steps
What's some
that they
steps?
can navigate
Yeah.
in the system?
That's a great question. I think it's knowing who to call. There are many different entities, open doors within our community where people can begin to seek help. One is the mobile crisis team.
Okay.
By calling the number.
Hold on a second. While you're there, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you
Okay.
know the number?
Do I know the number? Sure. It's 1-866-437-1821.
One more time.
1-866-437-1821.
And this is the mobile crisis hotline.
Yes.
And who can call that number?
Anybody. So I don't know if people have seen these rat cards around the community, but we're trying to get more.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna get my cameraman if he can zoom in on this card.
Okay.
Okay. As you're talking, but he's gonna zoom in on the card if he can.
Yes. So the idea is trying to make it as simple as possible for people to get connected to help.
Right.
So essentially, anybody can call this number. And when I say anybody, I mean a person who is a child, an adolescent, or an adult can call, no matter of your insurance coverage, no matter of where you live.
Oh, great.
This service is funded by the state as well as prepaid health plans, where the goal is to try to get people through the door by calling the number. An
We good?
assessment is done.
We good.
And with doing the assessment, the workers then begin to determine what the needs are, and the goal is trying to get people linked to whatever it is. So if it's outpatient therapy, if it's medication management, if it's honestly maybe there's some social determinant of health needs where maybe they need to be linked to a food bank or need to have an understanding of how to get a physical health appointment. All of those things are looked at because we recognize that we have to look at a person as a whole
components,
entity.
absolutely.
So we want to make sure whatever those needs are, we link them to that before we step out.
What is the cost of that for that service?
So-
is there? So when I call mobile crisis, are they going to ask me for money when I first call?
No, our initial goal is trying to help with whatever the crisis is. It's trying to de-escalate the situation so we can get there, so we can kind of establish some stability to then begin to determine which way we go. Now, if a person, for example, has Medicaid coverage, we will get that Medicaid information and we, handle the billing. If they have a third-party insurance, we get that information. But ultimately, if a person doesn't have insurance, it does not matter because
Good.
the state pays for us to be able to respond. So that is not a barrier at all.
That is so good because obviously that is, just keeping it 100. Finances is a barrier.
Yes,
People
it
hear that therapy is expensive. Therapy costs too much, and I work a job that I don't have insurance, so I can't afford it.
Right.
So at least this will get them at least the first stages of the help.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when they're having a mobile crisis, a crisis moment, and yeah. So for the people out there in the audience, what have you experienced as some of the mobile crisis? Not calling any names,
Sure.
but what kind of things that would make them feel comfortable? Like, oh, I need to call this number. If this is happening to me, I need to be the one calling this number.
So, and I'm glad you asked that because a crisis for me may not be a crisis for you.
Absolutely, that's what I said.
And that's important to understand. So some could be, I've lost my job and I don't know what to do. Right now I'm just sad. I'm down. I'm trying to figure this out. I have bills to pay. Not that the service provide money, but it helps the person to begin to process what's going on. If they are down, if they are sad, okay, let's talk through what options you have right now to try to help uplift you.
That is good.
So with being in a better state, you will be able to process whatever those circumstances are in a better way. It could be I'm having anxiety or a lot of emotion. Maybe it's an anniversary death or, something traumatic that has happened where I need some additional support. It could also be maybe my moods are going back and forth. I don't know why. I know I'm not myself. I
good.
know that this is causing some issues at work, at
That's
home,
good.
in relationships. I don't know. I just need somebody to
Yeah.
kind of talk to
Yeah.
to help me process through it. Then it can be as extreme as someone actually experiencing thoughts of hurting themselves or someone else. In those situations, family members, people themselves oftentimes call, or it may be I'm high, I am intoxicated and I'm ready to go into detox. Those are situations that we can respond to, and we're trying to get people the help they need. If in fact they are at risk of hurting themselves or someone else, we try to get people to voluntarily go to the hospital for an evaluation. But if for whatever reason they are not there, because they're not in tune to reality, then oftentimes we go to the magistrate and we complete that involuntary commitment paperwork so people can proceed to the hospital to get the evaluation that they need.
Good. I am so glad you answered that because I know there are people out there who may have been like I was, who have been in a state where they knew something wasn't right, but we never equate that to a mental health challenge.
Yes.
We just knew something wasn't right, but
Right.
we didn't know what it was. We didn't know how to recognize that I needed the help.
Yep.
So you sharing some of those examples, I'm glad you did because that hopefully helps somebody out there
Right.
who has just been struggling with just not feeling yourself or just feeling like something is off. I don't know what it is, something is off. And it's not that you're crazy, it's not that something's wrong with you. You just may need a coach, somebody to help us along the way to help pull us back in and focus. I got a phone call the other day from a gentleman who has been dreaming and struggling with voices in his head. And I'm not a clinician, so I can't say it's schizophrenia or bipolar or whatever that could be. But obviously, he needs some help.
Yeah.
So I did. I said, I helped him best I could. I prayed with him and all that. But I also recommended he seek some therapy, somebody who could really help him through that process. And know you're not crazy. No, not. It's we have some stuff going on, and
Right.
you're not bad for doing that.
Right.
And I was excited because he was a young black male reaching out.
So I commend you for praying and being there to support him,
Yeah.
but also recognizing your limits. And I say that because a lot of times in our communities within churches, again, this kind of goes back to the stigma of just kind of what we've experienced. People oftentimes lay their burdens down to their pastor.
Yeah. And try to
And
leave them there.
leave them there,
Yeah.
and I am a preacher's child, grew up believing in Jesus. Prayer is great.
Yeah.
Faith is great.
Yeah, we
Believe
need it.
in
We need it.
God,
We need it.
yes. But we have to understand that we have to operate in our scope. And knowing who to go to as a leader to attach or link someone to the mental health piece or the substance use piece, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And if more pastors, more leaders are like you and better understand the limits, we can work together as a community in collaboration to better help the people within our congregation.
Right, and that is what I think the common goal is. So, I think for too long we've been putting a Band-Aid over trauma wounds. That we are okay with just coming up here every Sunday, getting our high for that day or for that week, but we are not doing the work that's underlying behind that.
Yeah.
If you have a healthier congregation where you're bringing awareness,
Wow.
you're creating these rooms because these
Yeah.
rooms were not designed by us or for us.
That's right.
So you're now creating these rooms and people have a safe space
That's right.
to be able to come into and grow. It's all facets that you want your congregation to grow. I just don't want them to be able to come to you, be able to pray, speak in tongue, and go home. I
That's
need
right.
them to be able to get with you when you're going through an event where you just lost your job or you're on the verge of divorce.
That's
You know,
right.
what can I pour into you besides, baby, pray on this and get
Right.
up the next day. And then
act
I'm
like
just
everything's okay.
absolutely right.
Right.
And I think too, putting a face to it now. Sometimes we come out, we look like we're all together. We're singing on the praise team. We're preaching from the pulpit, and oh, he definitely doesn't have any trouble with this, or she definitely doesn't have any trouble with that. Oh, Tasha's the CEO of this company. I know her life is perfect.
Wrong.
Sis. You know what I mean? This is the level where you need even more
right.
mental health stability
That's
because
right.
you're balancing even more. So
right.
the freedom and even shedding the light on it is
Yes.
almost like gratifying itself. And so it is a privilege for people to be able to feel like, well, let me call him because I'm sure that he can tell me this and point me in the direction without, like you saying, because I think a lot of this happens as well, making sure that you stay in your scope of practice, that you're really not blanking in something for someone where they need some extra help.
That's right.
We're hoping that
That's right.
from all of this mental health conversation that other people see this and in the community and their congregations they're able to change that stigma within the walls of their church. But it also takes you being able to have courage,
That's right.
which is another curse word sometimes, because if we are soft per se and we talk about these things, our inner voices or other people judge us and, oh, he's weak because he couldn't handle this. So once you get what the armor is putting down that armor is, I think, what the mission is.
That's right.
I said all that to say I forgot my question. I think it was so when you first started, did you start, I want to go back to the building of
Sure.
the integrated services. Did you start at ground level where you were like case managing first, moving on up through the roles, or
So that story is interesting.
Okay.
And I would have to say it was definitely in God's plan. So I left here at Elizabeth City State with a Bachelor of Social Work degree, went to East Carolina for my Master of Social Work degree, and had an internship that I was supposed to do the last year. The initial placement did not work out for whatever reason. Now I know why. And the place that I was attached to at the last minute was actually from Cofield, North Carolina, which is adjacent to
Cofield,
the
a country,
county that I
Cofield.
grew up in.
ah
He became my internship supervisor. His name is Tony Rook. And in him becoming my internship supervisor, he had a goal to basically begin to start something back in Hertford County.
okay.
In me working with him, I guess him seeing my work ethic and realizing that I had a drive. At that point, that's when we began to kind of partner together to begin integrated family services, the building itself in Ahoskie, North Carolina. That was our actual first office.
Birthing place. Okay.
Yes. So at that point, when you are short staffed, just starting out, financial resources aren't that
Limited,
great.
yeah.
You have to do it all. So I was the director. Sometimes I answered the phone. I was a case manager. I was the first mobile crisis worker. Started with my hands in the weeds. However, I will take nothing from that experience because I believe it helped me see essentially what was needed. I can better understand the different facets of providing direct care. So now in my leadership role, I'm able to say that I'm connected to that, and I can use that perspective in helping come up with those strategies that we need to do well.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah,
We
I
good.
think that's good because if anybody sees this and then it's like, oh, I know Natasha, this makes it even more comfortable. Like, oh, well, she's just the director where you've already been at the groundwork level, so you can relate. And to me, the best leaders are those who have started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Now we're here.
Yeah.
So,
It's just a title.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, yes, I have the title, but that doesn't mean that if there is help in the community that's needed, that I'm not
gonna get my
go.
hands, put
That's
my
good
hands to the
stuff.
plow. Absolutely.
That's good stuff. So here we go. We're gonna wrap it up, but in give me 30 seconds and just speak to those people who may be watching or may watch this episode later and are struggling with something in their lives. Can you give an encouraging word to them to let them know that what they're going through maybe isn't the end all. Like they can get the assistance they need and they can get better. Because some people think since I have this issue or this concern or this challenge, this is who I am forever. Can you speak like 30 seconds to that person who may be watching, who need to be encouraged on today?
To that person, I would say you're not alone. We all struggle in some way or another at some point in time. And the goal is recognizing we don't have to stay there. So reach out for help with the number that we provided with your natural support pastor, whoever. Understand you don't have to go through whatever it is alone. Just allowing there to be an opportunity for someone to engage with you, give you hope, that in itself can turn your life around. So reach out. Have that courage.
And then while you're still talking to them, can you share with them again the name of your company and maybe a contact for your company? I know you say you have several different locations, but give them one contact and maybe they can contact that number and they can direct them to the right location, if you will.
So the mobile crisis number itself is 1-866-437-1821. That is to the mobile crisis line. However, we believe in connecting people to whatever. So if you just have questions, please call that number and our call center specialist will be able to direct you, even if it's not something that mobile crisis is able to help you with. Our actual office number is 252-439-0700. And the intake coordinators who are answering the call will receive whatever it is and link you to the different service or person that you need to be attached to get the help that's needed.
That's really good. So here we go. So we're going to end this episode of, I'm looking at it this time, y'all, keeping your mental health.
You got it.
This is part 2.
Awesome.
We probably, I don't know how long this episode was this time. We probably needed an additional hour of this because, Natasha, this was so good.
Very good.
Mika,
so much.
questions that Mika G asked, you helped me a lot in this session. I'm so grateful that we have people like you in our community that are willing to help people. And it's definitely necessary. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Pastor Mike with Pastor D. I pray that this blessed you as much as it blessed us up here today. This has been some valuable information. Please, please, please take this information to heart. Even if you don't need these services, there may be somebody in your circle, your family, your friends, your coworkers that could use these services. Please, please do not rob them of getting the assistance that they need, or don't rob yourself of getting the assistance you need. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment.
Follow.
I look Mika G because I got to get my tools for that. And I'm not even going to try to list them, but if you look on the bottom of your screen, you should see all the places that we are broadcasting now with our Pastor Mike and Pastor D. Once again, thank you so much from Pastor Mike and Pastor D, Daniel Spence, and
Thank y'all for hanging out with Mika G as well. Peace.
be blessed.